How we doing? Episode number 21 of Future Motocross Radio coming to you. Big weekend for us. A lot of moving parts. First time taking the semi. We went all the way down to the Tampa Supercross. Got a lot of different things to talk about on the episode. Got some people calling in. We got some great people in the studio. Mr. Sugar Shane.
Yeah, I'm here.
Tyler Kasha.
Hey.
How we doing?
Living the dream.
And I'm your host, RJ Huss, back for another episode number 21 of the Future MX Radio. Whew, what a weekend. Still trying to get all of it sorted and figured out, huh, Shane?
I woke up tired this morning, I ain't gonna lie.
I think all of us have, to be honest, and it's one of those things. We got a lot of different people in our, realm, or I would say, our zone of making all of this happen, and all the help that we have to try and do this. A lot of it's voluntary help to make all this stuff happen, and the phone calls being made this morning and throughout the day is just overwhelming, the amount of people that we reached this weekend, and then the people that did help us, how all of us are completely exhausted.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I know your phone never stops ringing.
Yeah, well.
It was very cool, though. Your whole team was there, as far as the guys that you support this weekend, all together in one spot.
Yeah. I mean, it was pure chaos. And I think we'll get into some of that, just the details of the whole thing. But, leading up to this week, we obviously started our professional journey in the pro racing in Houston. We talked about that on our Houston Review podcast. The boys, obviously, Aiden made the night show there. Cole just missed it by one spot as the first alternate. So, you don't really know what the expectations were going into Tampa. I know that we talked about it some on the last episode number 20, but here in episode number 21, it's tough, because you got so many hometown distractions.
Well, I believe that, you don't know the expectations in Houston, and you don't know what to set for Tampa either, but I as we get into it, there's a lot of improvements this weekend.
I think so. I think anybody that got to see the racing, anybody that was around the team, that you have to be happy with walking away with, how the guys did. But like you said, we'll get into all that stuff. Tyler, you were able to come down and join us down there in Tampa and get to experience some of the racing side of it and see it because, obviously you weren't able to go to Houston, which is quite a bit further and more expense to be able to go to those out-of-state rounds. But just being a local Florida team and trying to do this, the best that we can on the budget that we do have. And I want to say thank you to so many different people. Just to start off the episode, I want everybody to understand how much I appreciate them and how grateful I am. And that starts right here in this room first, both of you guys, Shane and Tyler, coming down there and helping with this weekend and what we had going on. I also want to say a huge thank you to both of our mechanics for the weekend. Mr. Pooh Sipes, just the guy is working so hard and putting in so many hours. It's unfathomable. I mean, how much that guy's working right now. And we also had Mr. Ronnie Monk with 612 Suspension Race Tech come down for the weekend and help with Cole on Saturday. He even came Friday as well. But just the amount of people, Donnie Shive was a huge help. I mean, help setting up the awning, taking down the awning, cooking food for the, the team. I mean, so many people.
Only if Donnie had a Class A, he'd be a pretty good truck driver.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a ton of people. Jamie Bradford was a huge help setting everything up. And I know there's people I'm going to forget, and I'm not trying to single anybody out there, but I just want to let everybody know that does help us and support the team. Everybody that's been involved in the entire journey, thus far and continuing to go. Huge thank you to all of them. So this episode, number 21, brought to you by our good friends at HBI Tax, HBI Racing. Mr. Matt Bell, his wife Darla, got to come down this weekend. They were out in Houston, but obviously with a hometown race, it's a lot different. We were both Florida-based people and heavily invested and involved in Florida motocross. So there was a lot of people that came by the semi to see Matt and Darla and take pictures. A couple people got to tour the rig. So huge thank you for them for continuing their support of this team and this journey that we're all on, trying to help these guys. So outside of that, I mean, I want to talk about how the journey started. I mean, getting everything ready to go.
Well, I wasn't too much involved in that. I was working, and the thing about it is RJ's busting his butt all week trying to get in the mechanics as well, trying to get the bikes loaded and ready and to go down to the race. And the boys are trying to ride, and they're probably breaking in their, race suspension and switching all that around and trying to get everything in the truck to get down there on time for press day. You actually had a press day this weekend.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of starting that off, the paddock manager, William Frederick, did a great job of keeping me notified of when we needed to be there. So trying to get the truck down there, logistics of that, and for people, we want this to be a podcast and an opportunity to show you what it takes to run a race team and giving people an idea what this is all about. And for us, Shane, you and I are right now the only two that have ever driven that semi.
Yeah.
And we both have real jobs. And I'm not saying that the racing team isn't a real job, because it absolutely is. But, the one that's paying the bills, and keeping a roof over the head is our real job, Monday through Friday. And when we both have a work schedule that we have to deal with and contend with, there's a lot of logistics for us on this side of the team, because there is so many volunteers and people that are just trying to help, that you have to account for what is their schedule. So when I was trying to map out when the truck was going to be there, I mean, what did we talk almost every day?
Yeah, we did, and that's just for Tampa.
Yeah.
So, like, if you honestly did, say, 17 rounds or just the full East Coast series, it's, as far as a driver and the logistics of all that, that is a full-time job. So juggling what you're doing is, for one race, is do that every weekend, and it's a gnarly process.
Well, I know you and I were talking about the different times that we may or may not have the ability to try and get the rig down there after work one night, or early in the morning before work.
Right.
And it ended out where my schedule, I was able to drive the semi down on Thursday and got in the staging lot, pulled the rig in, to the area on Thursday, and just started kind of getting some things set up, and was able to go to dinner on Thursday night with our good buddy Dino.
Oh, Dino.
Yeah, because they were parked. Anybody that was at the race or anybody that follows us on our social media channels could see the semi, the Future MX semi, was parked awning to awning with the Progressive Suzuki semi.
Yeah.
So Ken Roxon being right across from us, and then our good buddy Dino, who drives, Kenny's motorhome. We were down there on Thursday. There's not a whole lot going on Thursday outside of starting to get things, staged and set up. So Thursday night, there not a whole bunch of people around, as far as, people that I know, because obviously this is a very new sport, not new sport, but new level of this sport.
Right.
So I didn't have a ton of options, lined up for going to dinner, and I also didn't have a vehicle because I drove the semi down. So Dino connected, and we got done with what we needed to do, and he and I were able to go to dinner on Thursday, and ended up going to dinner with a couple of the KTM boys also. So that was super cool.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. But
where'd you end up sleeping that night?
In the cab of the semi tractor, the truck.
With the windows down?
Yes.
Was that a good decision or a bad decision?
It was a very bad decision. The tractor itself, like the actual truck portion, not the trailer portion. The trailer has a built-in generator that runs the trailer, and the trailer has a rider's lounge. But I did not want to run the generator all night long just for me, to sleep.
Right.
So the temperatures were good outside, and the truck has bunk beds up in the sleeping berth of the truck itself, not the trailer. So I made the decision on Thursday night, I'm going to sleep in the tractor of the truck, in the cab of the truck, in one of the bunk beds, and I'm just going to crack the windows because the temperature was nice. There was a nice breeze, no issues. Until about 12:45, 1 o'clock in the morning, when all I hear is zzz, and there's mosquitoes just eating me up. So I ended up fighting with that for a little bit throughout the night on Thursday night. Didn't sleep very much. And then Friday, we had an early morning for press day. So that was one of the reasons why I ended up staying down there.
Yeah, because it's such an early morning.
Yeah. Initially, we were supposed to have press day at 5 a.m. So I'm thinking in my mind, okay, well, that means I need to be there probably by 4 a.m. And then my house where I live is about an hour away from the stadium. So that means I would need to leave at 3 a.m. I would need to be up about 2:30 in the morning.
Right.
And I'm like, I will take that extra little bit of time and just sleep at the stadium. Well, we ended up getting a email that press day got pushed back a little bit, which was a benefit for us, gives everybody a little bit more sleep. So we didn't have to be up until, I think my alarm went off at 4:45 instead.
I wondered why when I got there on Friday, you looked like you had chicken pox.
Yeah. Thanks.
I was like, what the heck? But no, it's good. That's good. You're obviously putting in the effort, and you are partnershiped into this team, and you're sleeping in the truck. So
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
it's not very common.
Being one of the team owners and, sitting there in the stadium, sleeping in the cab of the truck to try and save on a hotel cost.
Well,
the other thing was wheels.
You're definitely experiencing it all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I talked to Seth Rarick, our good buddy Seth, the next day, and he and AP were in a conversation with me, and they were like, "Did you really sleep in the truck?" I'm like, "Yeah. Yeah, I sure did." So we go into Friday, and that's one of the things that you talked about. We were very fortunate enough and extremely grateful to be able to have press day. The boys get on the track. Yes, it is a bit of a limited track. You don't get to ride the entire track, but you do get to get on the track, get some photos of them in the morning, try and help promote the event that's going on. But at the same time, they, both riders are also getting additional track time. So they're getting to figure out some rhythms and see the track for the first time.
The dirt.
Yeah, the dirt, the moisture, and the layout, and try and get the rhythm and the timings down. And I do, there's a benefit to that also.
100%.
So, press day was good to be able to go out there. It was an early morning to be able to get that done, but, got to have everybody come down. Tyler, didn't you? You came down for press, didn't you?
Yeah, I was up early. Went out there. I'm glad it wasn't at 5 a.m. I'm not really sure how a 5 a.m. press day would have worked, but yeah, it was 7 a.m. was still early enough. And you were talking about how much of the track they cut off when I guess you're going to skip the giant whoop section, skip the sand. And then you inadvertently ended up with a rhythm section, a finish line, and a triple.
Yeah, the triple on the south end of the stadium, the long rhythm down the west side of the stadium. Then they came and cut across the start straight, and they did the on-off and then the table. But getting the on-off down, getting the rhythm that had the Dragons back, which we'll talk about, ended up getting us in the heat race. But
yeah, the Dragons back, when I was watching Aiden, he picked up that Dragons back probably within 5 or 6 laps. It was I was impressed, to be honest with you. I mean, they'll bite you, right? I mean,
yeah.
And he absolutely nailed down that section really early on.
Well, and I was proud of both boys. Cole and Aiden, there was the Dragons back, when you bounced off the top, you went over, and then there was a 3 into the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you didn't hit that Dragons back right, you could easily only get the 2 and then single into the corner. But they started picking up that triple into the corner, and I was happy that they were able to do that. So overall, super excited for them to be able to do press day. Big opportunity for us to get some photos of them, used not only in our own social media, but try and help, promote the event and, let everybody know that we're there in our home stadium. I mean, both of these guys are from Florida. Cole lives roughly 10 to 15 minutes from the stadium itself. And then Aiden, being in Dade City, is not that far away either. So very exciting for both of these hometown guys to be at Raymond James Stadium. They get to go watch a Bucks game there on a Sunday, but then obviously race there on a Saturday night's big for them. So that was exciting. And then Shane, you had some work stuff going on in the morning, but you were able to come down. It was about lunchtime.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to get there to help you guys out to set up the tent, and then I get there and everything's all set up, and I was like, all right, well.
That's pretty sweet, huh?
I'm like, this is nice.
How many times?
That's why I made extra effort to tear the thing down. So.
Well, how many times when you were in the game did you ever get to a race and your awning was already set up?
Never.
Because you were always the one doing it.
I've actually set it up by myself before, which I think I've mentioned, because guys have flight troubles or just get distracted somewhere else. So. Yeah, it was a relief not having to set that thing up. I wish I actually would have, because then I would have learned how it goes together, because every framing of a tent's different.
Yep.
So I was trying to figure it out when I was trying to tear it down. But yeah, so that was nice. So Friday we just kind of hung out, and Coop came over, and the boys sat there and BS for a little while, and that was kind of fun.
I
And then I actually had a chance to walk around before the storm happened, and like say hi to some old buddies and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we got to go around and see Big B and Jimmy Jack, and it was cool hanging under the awning. I mean, like you mentioned, Cooper Webb came and sat with us under there for a while. And we got to chit chat and make fun of each other for a while. And Marshall Welton came by, Seth Rarick, and TB. I mean, TB was a huge help all weekend long. And,
yeah, he was.
Trying to get all that. I would say for me, I almost think that Friday afternoon was probably my favorite part of the weekend.
It's Fridays are always pretty good because everybody's set up, done, everybody's hanging out. When I worked at KTM, we started doing Friday evening dinners.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool, and a lot of people would come by and just hang out. And,
I could totally see that.
Yeah, so I started doing Friday night. I don't know if they still do it, but I started doing that, and I'd have like Friday night taco night and stuff like that at KTM, and it was a good time. It's just like it just builds. Fridays to me build like camaraderie with other teams and as well as the team itself. So it was pretty fun.
I think that was probably the most relaxed of the entire weekend. It was a little bit, I don't want to say stressful, but it was a little bit nerve-wracking.
Hectic?
Well, getting the semi down there on Thursday, obviously I've had a CDL for 15 years and I've driven a lot of big stuff for many years, drill rigs and semis and stuff, but that semi with those separated axles like that,
they don't turn.
It does not want to turn.
She's a big old girl.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You got to make sure that thing doesn't trail behind you very.
So getting that thing down there through Tampa traffic was a learning experience, definitely.
Yeah.
Making sure swinging all your turns wide enough and getting that thing in there. So Thursday and then getting there, there was a lot of organizing that was going on Thursday, like inside, because when you're in a rush to leave, it's just throw all the boxes in there. We'll sort it out later.
Right.
But once I got down there on Thursday, I was the only one down there. So I started arranging and organizing and putting things where they needed to be. Pooh came down for a little bit and dropped off an additional bike and started helping me with some of those things. And then you get to Friday, the Friday morning rush of, okay, get ready, get the bikes unloaded for press day, get through press day, get the awning set up, get everything kind of laid out how you want it, tables and chairs, right. Ropes and chains. But then Friday afternoon was like, okay, let's sit down for a minute. Let's enjoy the moment. And that's when we were able to go, on a golf cart ride and go see some of those guys like Big B and Jimmy Jack and, cruise around the pits and see some of that and then have the boys come underneath the awning. So Friday was cool. And then Saturday is when the storm happens.
Yeah. It's a fun storm though, RJ. I mean that's what you're there for, and it literally, from the minute everybody starts showing up, it's nonstop until the minute you leave.
Yeah, that was a very big learning experience for me. When we were in Houston, there was so many less people there. It's not a hometown race. We didn't have the full semi there. We just took our small trailer. So to have that chaos on Saturday, and you're trying to juggle. You got two guys that are trying to ride and do the best that they can do. But also for me, we have a lot of value and our assets there between the semi, the awning, everything inside. So you're trying to manage politely, trying to keep people out of the semi, that don't necessarily know, hey, we've got to be able to get in the semi to get a spare wheel, to get gas, to get filters. Like we've got to be able to get in and out of there quickly. Even my own children, I'm like, you cannot be in here right now. This is we are a professional race team.
It's another level compared to going to local races or going to an amateur race. I mean, even at the amateur level, you have to still have a level of respect, but it's a whole nother level. And I get how you're feeling about a local race because trust me, when our trucks used to head east, getting out of California, like it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
So at least you got the local race out of your system.
West was home for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah. So every one of those California rounds was basically a hometown race.
And it was probably about 30 times worse than what we experienced this weekend. But I'm glad you experienced it because you know what to expect now. And by no means was anybody disrespectful or whatever, but like people want to come and hang out and they want to see what's going on. That's why we're there. And part of this is entertainment.
Sure.
But at the same time, you have to concentrate on your riders and what their job is.
Yeah.
So you got to find that balance.
And I think that's the hardest thing for me is I haven't done it enough to know the balance yet. I mean, I'm worrying about details all the way down to what song is playing over the Bluetooth speaker underneath.
Well, I did too, because some crazy song came on. Are there cuss words on this? Like, there's a bunch of kids standing around.
Right. So having all of that mapped out and using clean versions instead of explicit versions, I mean, it was that fine-tuned for me to try and keep track of all of that. And man, it's a lot. And again, hometown race. I mean, I sincerely apologize for the people that I did not have the time to spend as much as I wanted to with them. There was a lot of people that wanted to have conversations, and I tried to go outside the awning, and I would end up talking to somebody, and 3 other people would want to talk, and I would get pulled away from a conversation. So,
well, you don't have to apologize for that. Like, that's just the name of the game. Like, you're busy. It's a busy day. Like I said, from the time it starts till 10, 11 at night.
Right. Did anybody that follows us on our social media tell the people where did we watch the mains from?
The semi.
In the rider lounge of the semi.
I haven't done it in a while, to be honest with you. I think it used to be anywhere from like 15,000 to 20,000 steps a day at a Supercross. That heart monitor on your iPhone. I haven't done it in a while, and I was like, I'm good, man. I don't need to walk up to that stadium. I've been, because I tried to help you guys out with film and practice, and not sure if the boys took advantage of that, but anyway, I filmed practice and kind of like did my normal routine, what I normally would do, on a race day. And it takes a while when you get to a race to learn, when you're a film guy or a team guy, to learn the route of the stadium.
Sure. And
how they route you. So the first time, me and Tyler actually walked up every, I don't know what you want to call it, ramp?
Yeah.
The walking ramp. And then the factory filming was in section 319, and that's on the other side of the stadium. But we walked up every ramp. I don't know, 20 of them.
It was brutal.
I
just looked at my phone. 15,500 steps on Saturday.
Yeah.
See, my numbers are good. So anyway, after that, I was like, no, not doing that again. So we found a service elevator for that purpose finally, and then it became easier. But still, I mean, it's brutal on everybody that's involved all day.
Yeah. Well, and Saturday, it was, to me, like I would take a step back and I would look around. When you've got, of course, hometown race is going to be different, but when you've got so many people, like we had a hospitality area underneath our awning, and I would just look around and I would say, look at how many people are here, just in general. Look at how many people are under here. Look at how many people are standing around us. I went into the stadium when the heat races were about to start, and I had somebody come up to me like, man, I tried to go to your rig 4 times to talk to you, and every time I went there were so many people surrounding your rig, I couldn't even get to you.
All right.
And I'm like, well, that's just hometown race. That's hometown race right there. And of course, being across from Kenny doesn't hurt either, on the exposure level, because he's got one of the largest autograph lines in the pits.
Yeah.
But overall, going into Saturday, super fun, exciting to have all those people around, to get that exposure and the people that are around. Big improvement. We talked about at the beginning of the episode 100%. That we would get into it, but both boys go in and do some great work in qualifying. Both set fast laps in their second qualifying session and end up qualifying Aiden 30th and Cole 32nd. So first time for Cole ever making the night show in his second ever pro race in his rookie season. So, both of us were pumped. I mean, he came off the track. I gave him a big fist pump and a hug, and told them that I was very proud of them for getting into the race or into the night show, which an improvement over Houston. And I mean, if you can improve each week, that's a positive.
It's a big deal. I mean, as long as they make gains, that's what it's all about. I mean, they're super rookies.
Yeah.
In this not in this sport, but in this level, and to be there with as many guys as they're going up against, that should be a very proud moment for the team as well as the riders.
Yeah, I was excited about it. I mean, when they came off the track and we pretty much knew they were in, a good friend of ours, Dan Truman, was texting with me back and forth, and we were monitoring where they were at level-wise in the in the qualifying practices. And, Dan and I were going back and forth, and it's like, hey, they're sitting right around 30th to 34th, somewhere in that range. And then when the official results, the official qualifying times came up, and they said they were in 30th and 32nd, man, it was just like, wow. Both of them are in the night show. That's huge. And, then we go into the heat races.
Well, hopefully people start realizing who you are.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going there. You're there to make a statement that you're a team, and you have decent riders that are making the night show, and that was my biggest take of it, is that it's a serious operation. It's not no fluke or anything like that. So I was very proud of everybody involved.
Yeah, I was too, and I was extremely happy that both of them got in. And once you make the night show, both the boys made a little bit of money, so that's good for them. To make a couple bucks. And we went into the heat race, and that at that point, you and I had put our headsets on, the radios on, and went into the stadium and sat down in the seats and watch opening ceremonies. That's always exciting. I mean, I could watch those every weekend and not get tired of it. And then the heats go off, and here we got
Heat one.
Both boys in heat one. Both boys lined up right next to each other, and they get going. Next thing I know, Aiden's in 6th in the heat race in a transfer spot, and I'm just sitting there losing my mind.
Yeah,
I was too.
I mean, I'm completely losing my mind. I'm like, he's in a transfer spot. He's got it.
It was a weird experience for me, to be honest with you, because the people I've worked with, dude, they're gonna get in, and some of them have ended up in the LCQ, but if those guys go to the LCQ, they're gonna get in, unless there's some freak thing, I was more excited about Aiden running P6. I was like, oh, are you kidding me right now? Hell yeah! It made me nervous.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, this boy better not mess up. The whole time I'm like, wow, this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
So super cool.
And then the Dragon's back, which we talked about at the beginning a little bit ago. But
he dialed it in so early, but it led to his demise.
Yeah, I believe he made a comment that I think he might have accidentally hit his rear brake, and that's what ended up putting him into a bit of a nose down, going over the top of the Dragon's back, which in turn made him go down.
Right.
Wasn't able to get back up into a transfer spot in the heat race. So, Cole, a little bit outside of the bubble there for getting it, transferring into the main event, the heat race. So both of them, onto the LCQ. And again, in the LCQ, they lined up side by side, which, Pooh and I debated that a bit. And, I don't know. I can see it. Pooh corrected me, and I didn't think of it that way. My mind frame was, why do you guys keep setting up or lining up side by side? Don't you think there had to be a little bit in their head of, I'm lined up next to my teammate. This is the last guy that I want to bump elbows with or take down on the start or the first turn. So I just felt like that would make them hold back and check up a little bit. And I didn't think that was a great idea.
What was Pooh's aspect on it?
Pooh came on the radio and put me right in my place and said they practice starts together next to each other every day.
I mean, as long as the kids have the mentality on the track that they're racing against each other, and if there is a moment to where they have to do something to qualify against their teammate or whatever, I mean, it makes sense. I didn't agree because they were so much, which I know people don't like my opinions. I didn't agree because they were so far on the outside. So if they got pushed way out or whatever, then it would screw both of them.
Right.
Not that they were going to take each other out. I was just like, well, if somebody jacks up on the inside and then the whole field goes wide and shoves everybody on the outside into a hay bale, then everybody's on the ground.
Yeah.
So I just felt like they should maybe be a little bit separated.
And that's kind of how I felt. I didn't feel like that was necessarily giving them both the best opportunity. You know, maybe the outside line was a better line, maybe the inside line was a better line, but you know, why don't you try each side?
Right.
And they lined up right next to each other, and I go back
all night, right? Though all night
in the heat race they did, and in the LCQ they did, and I felt like I go back to that Fortner crash, and I'm, you know, obviously it's terrible for Fortner, and I'm not trying to knock him down or, you know, put anything there, but that was the thought or image that came in my head was, if you end up drifting or bumping, you know, the guy next to you, that's your teammate, and we want both of them to succeed the best that we possibly can. So I feel in their mind, and honestly, you know, I look at the situation in Houston, you know, between Cody Schock and Cullen Park, where, you know, they almost collide in the air over the finish line, and Cody ends up going into the bridge jump. And I mean, I'm not here to talk about
that's racing at that point.
Well, I don't want to talk about who was in the right or wrong, but as a team owner standpoint, you don't ever want to see one of your guys take your other guy out. Like, that's not ideal.
Right.
You know, you want both your guys to finish each race the best that they can possibly do. So I think that's where I was coming from. As far as the starting aspect was, I was reflecting back to the Fortner crash. If these guys get halfway down the start and they end up bumping each other, you know, locking elbows or whatever it may be, then it would be, you know, a problem. But, you know, like I said,
luckily it didn't happen.
It didn't, but I'm always curious, does that play a factor in their mind when they're sitting there on the gate and the gate's dropping, that they're not going to push it a little bit further or harder than they would want to because it is their teammate next to them. So that was the point that I was making, and then Pooh shut me down.
Or you could, I mean, it's all reverse psychology or whatever you want to call it. Or it could give them more motivation to beat their teammate to the first corner.
Well, the other thing is maybe comfort.
Yeah.
You know, if they are comfortable that they've practiced multiple starts with, you know, them throughout the week, you know, next to each other, then they say, hey, I know that he's a good starter. I know that he can, you know, get out of the gate clean and not clean me out. So maybe that was one of their thoughts behind doing that. I'm not super sure. You know, obviously I had my own opinion. Pooh had his opinion as well. I can see both sides of it, and I'm totally fine with, you know, moving on or moving forward with, you know, the ideas that, you know, we try some different things and see what works. But get into the LCQ. You know, I think the boys rode well. There were some very good guys in the LCQ, including our guys. Aiden just missed it. He was P6, so he was right outside the bubble, as they only take the top 4. So when you go from the Houston rounds for Aiden specifically, and, you know, he didn't have the best heat race and then went down. He went down in the heat race and went down in the LCQ in Houston, to running in P6 in the heat race in Tampa. Yes, he did go down, and then running P6 in the LCQ, substantial improvement over Houston. Yep. And then the same thing with Cole. You know, like we mentioned before, Cole was first alternate, first one out in Houston, and didn't make the night show. So to be able to get in there, get gate drops for the very first time ever in his career, and say that he made, you know, a professional night show, that's an opportunity that we're here to try and provide for him. And I feel like that's a success for myself, you know, Matt Bell and Brian, everybody that's, you know, a part of the team in the Future MX, and what is the whole goal or the concept behind the Future MX. And that is for us to try and give someone an opportunity. And I feel like we accomplished that this weekend. You know, both guys had the opportunity to go out there and make a night show. They did. They had the opportunity to make the main, and they just missed it. But they both improved over Houston, and if you can continue to improve at every round you go to, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, with more experience, these guys are just going to get better at their racecraft and better at racing under the lights. And, you know, it's a lot to take in for those guys. So, no, very impressive. And I tried to give positive words to both those guys.
Give them a little motivational speech?
Well, no, not motivational, but like just, you know, hey, I told Aiden, because I know he was upset about that P6 crash, and I said, listen, man, that was a huge gain. You were running P6. Now you know you have the speed. Now you know that you can run in that position. You know, take the positives. Don't dwell on the negatives. And I talked to Cole after the LCQ, and he said he was happy on his performance because he went out there and raced the night show, like, and he's like, dude, I'm not going to take anything away from this except for I got the experience, I'm going to get better. So,
and he made gains.
Huge gains.
So if you're making gains and you're making improvement, how can you be mad about that? So
I think everybody was happy.
I think we all were. I mean, everybody that I talked to was, and I mean, you look at any of the social media comments and all the different things between Facebook and Instagram. I mean, there was a lot of people that were very impressed with both boys making it into the night show, which that's our goal, and they've done it. They've proved it, and they proved they could qualify in a decent spot. Neither one of them were right there on the bubble,
right.
39, 40, 41. Are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? They both made it. So
I was getting text messages from all over the United States, from family and friends. They were like, oh, dude, like, almost. And, like people were paying attention.
Yeah.
So it was I think it was a success for sure for the boys and the team.
Well, I'm going to call real quick, and I want to call Mr. Dan Truman. And I want to talk to him about some of the stuff that we went over in this texting of going over, what we, like I mentioned, the qualifying times when you're both looking for the qualifying times and how they finished. There's so many things that go into it. Like when you have a group A, a group C, group B, and you're trying to figure out where everybody is stacked up into that platform, there's a lot of math that's going into this that people don't realize or people don't know. And I think even with Dan, the nice thing about him was we were trying to do that math for the guys before the actual official race results came out.
Shane, I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead, Tyler.
And I don't want to hear no lip.
Oh, you're always going to get lit from me. That's for damn sure.
What do you think had a bigger impact on Aiden and Cole's success this weekend? Was it Houston, the experience that they gained from Houston, or riding press day?
Bigger impact. For sure, Houston. I would say it's...
I see you pondering it now.
I would say that Houston's 60%, riding press day maybe 40%, because Houston was obviously their first experience at it, and come on, the boys know how to ride a dirt bike. So yes, they're going to learn tidbits about the track on press day, but to go through the rigmarole of being in front of a huge crowd. I mean, yes, they do get huge crowds at the amateur level, but to be in that stadium setting or whatever, I think that experience in Houston helped them out with Tampa more so than press day.
Okay, because I'm just thinking to myself, well, you got Dan on?
Well, we're gonna find out. We tried calling him twice.
There he is.
I'm here, bro.
There he is.
55 entries.
I'm still working, man. Customers are calling and stuff.
Yeah, busy man. We know all the stuff that you have going on, but Dan, we were just talking about Tampa, and we were going through how you and I were texting back and forth and communicating with trying to do the math between the three different qualifying sessions. When you have an A group, a B group, and a C group, and you had 55 different entries, you and I going back and forth trying to map out, where these guys were at. It was exciting for me to see when we knew basically between, the math that you and I were doing, that we knew that they made it.
Yeah, I mean, I cheat, though. I have it on my screen.
Oh, well, that's really nice.
Yeah. So the fantasy site that you play, if you log on to the fantasy site and you click on the dashboard, it shows the qualifying times overall.
Even right after the practice?
Pretty sure. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
well.
Is that the same fantasy league that I keep whooping Dan's ass at every weekend?
Don't feel special. I'm in last place out of 20,000 people. So, don't feel special. There's 20,000 other people beating me as well.
I felt special for a moment. Sorry.
Well, Dan, for the listeners that don't know you, Mr. Dan Truman grew up racing in Florida, raced all over the country, and you got to experience a lot of this stuff after being in the industry for a long time. Give us a snapshot summary of the Dan Truman story.
It's kind of like a bunch of different lives all kind of piled into one, I think. But, I did grow up racing in Florida. I was a decent amateur. I rode for Team Green for 5 years, I think, through my mini bike days. Kind of fast forward a little bit, I turned pro in '04, a Leslie Believe the Hype year, and I didn't have it as far as like training wise. I was more into having fun and doing other things. I didn't come from much, so it was just me and my dad at the time, and yeah, so it was just me and my dad, and I knew I wasn't going to make it. Let's say, I grew up around like Chisholm and Ryan Sipes, and they did great for themselves, but for me, I went a different route. So easiest thing for me was to be a mechanic. I worked on my own stuff, did all my own sponsors growing up. So I was good friends with Jason Thomas and Chad Reed at that time, and worked for, at the time it was the BTO sports team. I think I worked for them for 5 or 6 years, and yeah, just worked on bikes and kind of got into Supercross and Motocross that way, and stayed in the industry. Tried to never burn any bridges was my goal. And I worked with Chad for a long time through the 2 days with Shane, and then kind of did his VIP program and helped with the team towards the end of his career. And then 11 years ago, during all this, I got approached by a company called Athena. At the time, there was no Git electronics, to work for them and run their U.S. division. So I've been here for 11 years. That's my main job. That's what I do every day. And, we sell ECUs and engine parts and gasket kits and all that stuff, and I run the U.S. division of that. So a little bit of everything. I get calls from riders, mechanics, teams, for all different kinds of things. My day's a bit crazy.
Trust me. I know you literally. I don't know how you get involved in the things you do, but you do. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've sold real estate. I've done a little bit of everything. I also look after the compound that the Future MX boys train at. That used to be owned by Chad Reed. So yeah, I do a lot of that stuff as well. I just, like I said, I have a lot of connections. Feld's here locally, so I've done a lot of stuff with them, and I see the behind the scenes of it. I see a lot of stuff.
Now, Dan, that's still Athena. You're still Florida based, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So Athena USA division started in California before I started here. It's just really hard with the time change. Italy is 6 hours ahead of Florida, so they moved to New York about 15 years ago, I think. So when I started, they were still based in New York, and then eventually moved to Florida. And I run the U.S. division of Athena USA. So the Git side is just the electronic division of Athena. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. Jetting YZ125 to programming ECUs for Team Honda, a little bit of everything. It's all in a day.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, though, that even when I went online to Athena's website, I did not realize personally how much stuff Athena has. The website, there's so much stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We just went to Rocky Mountain. Obviously, it's a large company out west in Utah, and we did our presentation with them because they're taking on some more products, and they had no idea. We have over 900 employees worldwide. We have plants in Brazil and China, and Italy's our main headquarters, and I'll go to Italy here in a couple months. I usually go 2 or 3 times a year. But yeah, just in general, it's a really large company. Just most people don't know it as what it is. But we make a lot of parts for OEs. That's where we kind of pride ourselves in. A lot of stuff for, not only motorcycles and scooters, but cars as well. So it's pretty cool.
Well, and a lot of different products on the website for all the different bikes out there. Anything from, gaskets and rebuild kits, all kinds of different things. And then now you got the ECU side, the electronics division of it, which is also, Git and Athena are together.
When did that come into play, the Git?
The Git stuff, I think, is I want to say it's about 8 years old now.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little. No, it's more than that, because Chad and James were the first 2 who really raced with it in the U.S. And anybody that's been in the sport, the Chads, Ricky, James, in the early days there were some issues. There's no secret. It was a new product.
Right.
Just leading edge of fuel, basically EFI. Basically when the EFI bikes came out, that's when Git started. So there were some hiccups for sure. James and Chad had some hiccups here and there. Early Pro Circuit days, they ran it, KTM. But, since then, that's all changed, and kind of going into this year, I'll give the Lawrence brothers a lot of credit. They really wanted to use Git. For me, it's a headache. I'm with them every day, and I've never asked them to use the product because it's just more work for me at the end of the day. But, of course, I would love them to use the product because it's awesome for the company. And they used it in Europe, and you got to remember, Jet's only like 19 years old. He doesn't remember those early days,
Right.
of stuff.
Right.
So he's like, when I used it in Europe, everything was awesome. And I'm like, I know. But say I get a rider, and I don't want to use Justin Hill's he was on pro circuit when there was maybe some issues, but if I approached Justin Hill today and was like, hey, you want to use Git, he could have a sour taste in his mouth, right? But Jet and Hunter Lawrence are like, man, we've never had an issue with it. And that's because the product got better. Think about your cell phone
a
11
guy,
years ago, right?
Yeah, a guy like Justin Hill, or not to use Justin Hill's example, but they don't understand that there's growth. There's, you guys are working your butts off to get the product better all these years, and they don't understand that. Like, oh, maybe we should revisit this.
Yeah, I mean, we had one engineer or two engineers back then. I think we have 8 engineers full time now. We have 7 dynos. We have a cold cell dyno, so the bikes can start in minus 20 degrees. There's just so much more to it than there was back then. So the Lawrences were like, hey, how can we test this and do this? And once Honda approved and everything else, and it's been awesome. I mean, the results speak for themselves. Of course, I think the Lawrences would win without it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it has been a piece to the puzzle that has been good. So.
Well, those two guys are looking great right now, and I mean, what a race for Hunter this weekend in Tampa. But Dan, you get to go to quite a few of the races. I don't know if it's every single race, but you get to go to majority of them. Anything about coming back to Tampa, being from Florida, and having so many people around? Is it more chaos for you, or is it a fun weekend for you to be kind of close to home?
Yeah, I mean, it's chaos for sure. Just the tickets and stuff. Everybody knows that I try to help out everybody. It's kind of my MO, and I get hit up for a lot of tickets and stuff, and I do appreciate everyone that the will call girls and stuff that they get frustrated. But that's the only crazy part. It is awesome to see all old friends and people we grew up racing with in Florida. In the early 2000s and stuff. I was pretty good in Florida, so it's cool to see all those old guys and stuff. But yeah, I work mostly. I mean, I don't even think I've seen you all day Saturday.
Just in the morning. That was it.
Yeah. So I help a lot with the HRC guys, and then also all of our privateers. I checked on you guys. You guys were good. I check on all the other guys. Mostly for me on race days, there's no ECU issues. With Hunter and Jet, they're always striving to be so much better. Jet whole shot of the first 3 or 4 races or whatever it was, but we're still, at the compound working on starts and things like that and looking at data. So that's mainly what my race days consist of. I enjoy Tampa. I think it's awesome. I love racing local. It's cool for like Shane and, you had Ronnie Monk and all these guys come out. I think it's cool especially for your team. So I like when we go to different venues like this.
Hey, Dan, when you went dead air there for a second, I was hearkening back to a story from, I think it was 99 at Gatorback Gold Cup, and seeing you ripping around on the 101 KX250, I think, back then. You might remember that day Ricky came out there, too, and spun some laps on his KX250. Do you recall that?
It would have been 2000, I think.
Yeah, he was
I
on the
remember.
Cali.
Yeah, I remember. It was either 2000 or 2001. I do remember it. Back then, the elevator was like a real jump. Like, it was tough.
Yep.
I remember jumping that.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in years, I think some super mini kids and stuff did it. But back then, it was like real. And yeah, I do remember that. And that was like kind of, I would say, the peak of my amateur career. I won the mini Olympics like the whole week, the Olympiad they called it or whatever back then, the B class. And yeah, I mean, those days were fun for me. Like I said, racing with Chisholm and Sipes and that was like my era then. And that was fun, but for me, and nothing against Kyle Chisholm or Sipes, I think it's awesome what they've done. But for me, I just wanted to go a different path. So the racing thing, I was never going to make it as a privateer like they did. I could have never done what Kyle's done, which is awesome. Like, basically reinvented his career like 3 times. And I think it's awesome, but I could have never done that. I just didn't have it. So.
I get you. It's not for everybody, right? And it sounds like, man, this Athena company, this Get Athena company is a kind of I'll dare say sleeper company with all these products and implementations across different OEs and cars, and it sounds like you got a sweet gig over there anyway. Switching back to the Supercross, though, did you have any idea what the attendance was?
I have no idea, but I do know that the attendance, the people that showed up had to be lower than tickets sold. like even myself, I did quite a number of tickets, and I want to say a third of them didn't come because of the weather scare.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree with that completely.
So what we've seen on TV, I think the sales were actually fine, but I think what we've seen on TV or in person, it looked weak to me. But I think that was all due to weather related.
Yeah, I know for a fact, Dan, even my own family, my mom and dad were planning on coming down. I had some friends from the FTR series that were coming down, and a few of them started texting me throughout the day, and, they said, hey, has there been any talks of cancellation because of tornado warnings? The weather's supposed to get bad. We're going to just stay at home. But they had already purchased tickets. They just chose not to come. And then obviously, anybody that was at the race knows the weather really wasn't a huge impact.
Makes me
I think we got lucky with the weather, to be honest with you. I mean, we were expecting a lot worse. And, I mean, they built the track, I think, expecting rain, so it wasn't really, really technical. The sand section was, I think the toughest section of the year for sure.
That was the biggest sand section I've ever seen.
Tampa
they did that.
They
didn't they do that in Tampa the last time they were there?
Yeah, they did. And, we haven't seen many of them like that. It's funny, I follow pretty much every track guy that builds tracks on social media, every platform possible, so I can always get insights and stuff, and I see the Yamaha guys were building a sand section today.
Really? There's
exact white sand. Well, Jordan Smith's crashed both rounds in the sand, so I know he's not a fan of it. I wouldn't say it's just Jordan, but there was exact white sand being built at Star Yamaha.
What's your opinion, Dan? I feel like they've had sand sections obviously in the past years, and they kind of do it on every track pretty much, but I feel like they're implementing it more. Is that your take on it? Because I feel like they are bigger sections.
Yeah, it seems like a certain couple stadiums we go to, right? Tampa every year, because as you know, Shane, they store the dirt close by. So I think it's going to be just those same stadiums. I don't think we go to Indy and we get a sand section, or Seattle and we get a sand section. I just don't think it works there. But I think for Houston and for Tampa and maybe Nashville, we'll see sand. But they're definitely implementing it more. I mean, you got to build 17 tracks, right? Different every week, every year. Like for me, I think this is like my 19th or whatever 20th year going to races. And,
right.
I mean, there's only so many obstacles they can do.
I think the sand is a big separator. Oh. Honestly.
Yeah, it
definitely
it is, and the guys will use a tire that's for the start or for the rest of the track for the most part, right? If there's only one sand section, so the bike setup isn't great in the sand.
No.
So that's why I had some people sitting by us or whatever. They're like, "Man, why does everybody look like sea riders in the sand?" I'm like, "Well, their bike's set up for the whoops or the rest of the track. You're not exactly set up for the sand." Like, I mean, I think Aiden crashed in the sand a number of times, and I mean, he's 41.
And he's a Florida boy.
Yeah, he's a Florida boy. If you take him to Croom on his motocross bike, he's going to be great. You know what I mean? But it's like if you took an FTR rider out and you put him in through the whoops, it's not going to look very well. You know what I mean? So,
hey, Dan,
I think it's good. I like it separates it.
You said that you've been going to races for almost 19, 20 years. Out of the series schedule, and I know I have one personally for me this year, but I want to ask you first. Is there any race specifically that you look forward to when you see it being released on the schedule each year?
Well, I have my different reasons. Like, I love Indianapolis because of the city.
That's my favorite too.
I knew Shane was going to go there.
Yeah, Shane always goes to Indy, and I do like all the city rounds. Like for me, the California rounds, they don't do it for me. Just everyone goes home, right? They're early in the year. Everybody's super stressed because they're early. I like San Diego the last couple of years because it's, again, in the cities. But just the whole operation of Indy is really good. Daytona is our home race. It's Daytona. But as a fan, I don't think Daytona's that good. You can't really see a whole lot. The track's long. And that's, people get upset with me every year when I say, hey, I'd rather go somewhere else than Daytona. For me, the speedway tracks, you can't really see a lot. Even when I was younger, I went to the Charlotte race. But is Daytona yours, RJ?
No. I can see where you're coming from, though, because we went to Atlanta last year for the Futures round, and then I've gone to Daytona, my whole life growing up. And I can see what you're talking about, because if you end up getting on one end of the track or the other, you almost can't see the other end of it whatsoever. So viewing there is a little bit tough. I do like, the fact of if you do get over there a day early or if you end up staying through bike week, I mean, there's some fun parts of it, bike week by itself and then the beaches. And, I remember a couple years ago taking the kids and my wife and going out on the beach. I think it was the day, two days before the race even was going to happen. So that's exciting and it has some perks. But I would say, Dan, for me, I'm looking forward to the most this year is probably Nashville.
Yeah, and Nashville, we've only had it once on our schedule, 2019, and it was great. It was amazing. And I think, again, everyone's looking forward to Nashville. It's kind of like the new Vegas for all of us. I think all of us that are getting older, maybe.
Yeah.
At least for me, I would if you had to say go to Nashville or go to Vegas, I'm Nashville all day long.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that Nashville will be good, but we've only done it once, so I don't necessarily look forward to it every year. But like when I see the schedule, I really like Arizona. Scottsdale's a really awesome city as well, and Indianapolis. For West Coast, the Arizona round would be my favorite, which we just see the Super Bowl and, the Waste Management Golf Tournament there, and the city's awesome.
Yeah.
Indianapolis is always going to hold a special place in my heart. I don't care about any other place but that place. I don't know what it is, but I love that city.
Well, I think you stay in the city, right, and you can just everyone kind of walks around and goes to places. And Vegas was really good back in the day because we used to always stay together, but now everybody stays in their own place. So trying to even meet up to go to dinner is like, I'm staying over here or I'm staying over there. It makes it so difficult where I think Nashville will be good because everybody will be in the city.
Do you think that is there going to be a plan to race in the new football stadium there in the future, Dan? You have more knowledge than what's going on than I do.
Yeah, so, the plan has always been to go to the new Vegas stadium, but they have some crazy rules about dirt being in that stadium and plywood being on top of their grass field. So both the Oakland Stadium and the Arizona Stadium have a football field that rolls out. The grass is natural grass, and it rolls out into they're the only two stadiums that have that. So I think it's cost-related, and then, just making it work. I think another couple years, and we'll be back in Vegas. That would be my opinion.
Yeah.
I know World Supercross thought they were going to go to Vegas. The original talk was like they were going to start their series there, but then once they understood all the rules.
Right.
And that's the stuff that we don't all get to hear, right? I know of other venues that they've looked at in the last 6 months. The Feld people have flown to other stadiums and looked at, and there's some crazy restrictions. Like I know one of the stadiums was perfect. Parking, everything was perfect, and the tunnels for the college football stadium aren't tall enough to get the bulldozers in to build the tracks.
Wow.
So it's just some logistically things that we just don't know. We would never think of that, right? They were just like, all right, everything's perfect. Let's have this race here. And then they're like, wait a second, how are we going to build the tracks? Because the tunnels are like small tunnels, So just some things like that we don't think about. And but yeah, I do think we'll go back to Vegas sometime soon.
Yeah, that's great.
I think for me, I go kind of with Dan on the fact of the age thing and the fact that I just love country music and live music. That I've never been to Indy, so I don't know what the city in Indy feels like. You
got to go.
You keep telling me that. You keep saying that.
Yeah, that's good.
I haven't been there yet, but I've been to Nashville quite a few times, both work-related conventions and also just, for fun. And it's just such a cool city, and I'm looking forward to that one. And I think, too, there, Dan, that one's a day schedule this year?
Yeah, I believe so. I think Atlanta's a day schedule, Nashville's a day schedule. I think that, they plan that for TV and things like that, not just for us to go party. But I think I tell myself it's so we could go party. That's what I tell myself.
Well, I mentioned it to somebody at Tampa, a friend of mine, and they said, yeah, we're going to Nashville, and, we're going because the Supercross is there, but we also want to go and make it an extended weekend and just enjoy it. And we already have reservations at some restaurant or rooftop bar after the Supercross is over. And I'm like, man, you guys are going to go out super late. And they're like, no, it's a day schedule. I was like, man, I didn't even know.
That's when I made the decision that me and you are taking the semi there on the day schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, sleeping in the bunks.
Did you guys already talk about Aiden's heat race? Did we talk about that?
We did. We briefly touched on it. We talked about how you and I were going back and forth trying to get through the qualifying times and how proud we were that both of them made it in. And then in the heat race for Aiden, running P6, I was completely freaking out.
I mean, what did we need to work on though? From a team standpoint, what were we telling them on the pit board? Who was it? You? Was it Pooh? What were we telling them? Was Aiden not reading the pit board? Because he had a huge gap tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Pooh was on the pit board. I was in the stands with the headset on with Shane and my wife and kids, and we were in the stands watching the race. And I don't necessarily think it was, some people said just let Moseman by, but I don't think it had anything to do with Moseman. I mean, that was a mistake that he made on his own.
Yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with Moseman either. And I think he would have, it would have been close. I think Chris Bloss ended up getting ninth, and it would have been really close regardless. Bloss is obviously a vet, but he was riding amazing. I think he'll get in one of these next few. And right when I jumped on, Shane said I think riding Houston and stuff helped for sure.
We did talk about it, and Aiden did state the fact. We don't know if it's a fact, but he did state that he may have hit his rear brake going, which obviously caused the front end to dip down. So I don't know. You can never get in their head and find out what the hell really went on, but he could have definitely relaxed a little bit.
Well, and Dan too, one of the things that we talked about, Houston, first ever pro race for both of these guys. First time ever being in a dome, ever being in a pro race. You get the excitement and the jitters of being at your first one, but then you follow it up with your second one, and that's in Tampa.
Hometown race.
So that's your hometown race. You have 1 million people there watching, their girlfriends, family, friends, everybody in the stands. You're distracted all day long. It was super cool for me to see the amount of people that turned out for them and support them with all the autographs and posters and pictures that they were taking. So that has to play some into their mind. And I can't speak for Aiden because he's not here, but I would assume at some point in his mind, he was halfway through that heat race saying, oh my gosh, I am in a qualifying position. I could potentially make my first main event. And I would assume that there could have been some distractions. I don't know.
Or brain fart, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, distractions, brain fart.
So, wait, what happened to Dan?
He hung up.
Oh, just left us.
Dan was done talking.
I had many more questions.
He said, I'm done with you. But no, I do think that there's got to be a part of that that's going through a racer's mind, in their mindset and said, okay, something's going on here. Something happened. We'll see. But
you know what? One thing I know about Dan Truman.
What do you know about Dan?
Is the fact.
I don't know what happened.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, he's back.
I was getting ready to blow you up, but one funny thing about Dan Truman is that no matter what I do in life, no matter what he does in life, I always feel like I'm gonna be connected with Dan Truman because it always comes back. It's funny.
Well, I think that's a bit of a testament too of how long both of you guys have been in the game and in the industry.
It just happens.
Yeah, I mean, because in your career, 2-2 I know was probably the most. And Dan, do you even recall the first time meeting Shane?
No, I knew of Shane in the early days. I don't know. When did you work for Suzuki, Shane?
2000.
09?
I pretty much did all of Dungy's career at Suzuki when he was on Lights and 450s. So
JT was on Suzuki's then as well when I was a mechanic in the earlier days, and he rode with Chad.
Yeah.
And Chad was factory Suzuki, so I knew Shane from the races because Chad was always giving me, ideas on how to change my bike and things like that. So
Right.
I knew of Shane, but me and Shane became closer through the 2-2 days.
Yes.
With Oscar and Lars and all those guys, and and then once he moved to Florida and I was at the compound and stuff like that. But yeah, me and Shane have done so many odds and end jobs together through powder coating or whatever.
Just weird stuff.
Whatever.
Yeah, all the time.
From 2018, we were extremely close. Was our closest year just because myself and Shane ran the entire team for the most part. Obviously
Right.
Ellie and Chad, but Chad was trying to race. Ellie was doing the other stuff, and yeah, it was kind of crazy, man. We could tell some crazy stories about that year. Shane flew to 17 races with 17 sets of suspension.
Yeah.
Every weekend. I have a picture from all 17 rounds.
Vanessa.
Set of suspension.
Vanessa.
Yep, Vanessa. He named the suspension case Vanessa. And I can promise you there's never been a factory rider that's done that, right? Kenny told me that he's kind of doing that this year. Like they're still changing as they're racing, so
Right.
he may fly home with his race set or fly back with his practice set. But we went 17 rounds with a suspension case with us, like just because we built that team on November 27th is when Chad decided to go racing. I think right after Thanksgiving, and we built an entire team. Like think about how much it took you, RJ, to do your team.
Well,
which was kind of it. Your team was at least kind of even in more place than we were.
Well, when you just said that, I mean, I had a conversation earlier today with Cole. That we're still chasing some settings on suspension, and we're working on it. We're trying to do everything we can, on the budget that we have. And I have to remind him and the boys of that sometimes that we don't have unlimited funds and factory budgets to be able to change everything drastically or go to a different setting overnight because, we don't have that option. But when you're just talking about, even somebody at Chad's level in the 2-2 Motorsports days of flying to the race with a different set of suspension each weekend, I mean, that just, goes to show you're constantly trying to improve.
Yeah.
It was tough. That year he got injured at doing straight rhythm too, so we didn't have any testing time. We went to A1 with a truck. I have pictures. I documented this whole thing because one day we were going to write a book.
It was a lot,
I'm at the tent place the night before A1, getting a tent made, things like that for the semi. And, I mean, we looked great. We fit the part. We did a VIP program. Everybody had a great time. Chad's results suffered mainly because he was hurt and wasn't able to prepare. But, I mean, we did it. We made it work. And it was myself, Shane, a truck driver, and Goose. That was it. It was pretty crazy.
Well, and that's what I don't think
Vanessa.
People don't really understand that side, though. Even this weekend in Tampa, they see the rig, that they see the semi, and they don't see all the volunteer, all the hours, the effort that's going in behind things, and they think, because we have a semi and the awnings there and we're at a pro race that, sometimes I believe that there's a misconception that there's just an endless amount of money somewhere that, you can grab all these things from. And, people don't realize that, sometimes to go racing, even at that level, you're talking about 2018, the career that Chad has had, and you're going with a pretty limited crew. And I mean, that's...
Oh, we have 4 people. I mean, that was everything. We were one rental car, a couple hotel rooms. We were on a budget. Obviously, Chad was paying for it all, and just like you're saying, at some point there was a limit on everything,
Yeah.
And it was tough. But they all have budgets, and being in the know, like Shane and myself, I mean, even Honda or Suzuki, they all have budgets, right? And I mean, in the early days, we used to share hotel rooms. Now, teams are, basically everyone gets their own room. But little things, there is a budget. 100%
depending on the
there's
team.
A budget.
Depending on the team.
Yeah. Well,
I was sleeping in the cab of the truck this week, so.
I mean, I would say there's teams that have more money than others for sure. But I mean, as close as I am to Honda, I mean, they definitely have a budget. They don't cut any corners, but there is a budget. Some of the staff wasn't there this weekend. The West Coast guys didn't come, because that's flights, hotels.
Well, yeah, the money you can save just in logistic wise on hotels and flights and all that is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're not a necessity, you don't need to be there. Then you don't need to be there. It saves the team money, and you can, the money you save can go towards something that's more important.
Trust me. Yeah. I was sleeping in the cab of a truck this week to save a hotel room.
But
that's very real.
At the BTO Sports Days, JT and myself slept during the West Coast rounds. We slept in the cab of the truck. I mean, sometimes it was fun, right, to stay at the race, not have to get up early for the press day. It was nice, but obviously that gets old, right? You couldn't do that for a whole series. But I've seen both sides of it. I've been on the very small side like you, and then the factory side, but there's still budgets there, 100%.
Yeah. So Dan,
maybe not. I don't know. KTM maybe don't have a budget. They seem like they can do anything they want, but I don't know where they get money from.
I'm not going.
You worked for KTM.
I'm not going to say on the air what my grocery bills were, but they were very high, and nobody.
I mean, they have a new truck, I think, coming next. Not in Oakland, but the following weekend. Wait till you guys see this thing. It's it's a brand new truck. I mean, Shane, maybe you've seen it, but it's awesome.
Is
It's
it
crazy.
is it a different layout on the trailer side of it, because they've been talking about it for years?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So it's coming to
both
fruition.
sides, and yeah, it's the hospitality truck, both
Gotcha.
sides, all this. But the point is like, who knows how much that thing costs? You know what I mean? But I mean, they do sell a lot of motorcycles.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Dan, are you going to Oakland?
I am not going to Oakland. I've made my kids a promise that I would be at a gymnastics competition.
Yeah, sounds like me. I missed 2 of them
Yeah.
by going to Anaheim and going to Houston. So I'm gonna stay back local home, and we got a lot of different things going up. But with the upcoming, like the immediate schedule, we got Oakland, Dallas, Daytona. Those are the next 3 coming up. Are you going to be at Dallas and Daytona?
Yeah. So right now my schedule is I attend the races for Get and Athena to support all of the privateers and the teams that use the product. And we do foot that bill, which is the expensive part, right? So Honda has gotten their own ECU guy and their crew chief that have now learned our product pretty well. So right now my plan is to continue going to the races, but if they give me the okay that I could stay home, I would much rather watch it on my couch, because I don't enjoy Saturdays at the races. It's a long day, as you know, and my fantasy team has suffered. My life is suffering. Like, my liver is suffering. Like, everything about it's just not doing well. So I just want to stay home.
Well, I mean, after 20 years of going to every single race every single weekend, I can fully understand that.
I love traveling. I love everything about it, but I really do. My kids are 7 and 10 now, and I'm missing events and stuff that I would like to be a part of. And if I'm not, like this weekend, the team had everything under control. I don't necessarily have to do a ton anymore. And if we're 6-7 rounds in and your bike's not working, like, I don't know, man. You guys got
Give it up.
These guys got to figure it out. Yeah, like, figure it out. I mean, I hate to say that, but just figure it out.
Hey, Dan, thinking about the potential with getting Athena on electric bikes, has there been any talk of the possibilities surrounding that, or getting involved with an electric motorcycle or electric motocross bike, and the potential with the the electronics and capabilities?
Yeah, we've definitely talked about it. So we had an electric bicycle company for a while that we then sold, and they were more like grocery getters and stuff for Europeans, not like mountain bike style like you see Specialized and things like that. And it's a huge market, especially in Europe, because of the price of gas and everything, diesel. So we have tons of contacts, and we are working with some companies that plan on making electric motorcycles. And we've had meetings with Stark and all these companies and things, and we don't necessarily think that it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be big, but we don't necessarily think that they're going to be racing Supercross and Motocross on these things. Like the dirt bike, we don't think is going to go away. That's kind of our opinion, like the motocross bike. But maybe we're wrong. But at least in my time, I think we still see things with engines and gasoline.
Yeah.
So.
Where is the best place to find Get and Athena parts? I am kind of pseudo-sponsored by Future MX. I've got a 23 KX 450, and I was looking to put a map switch on it. And where could I go, to Rocky or to any?
Yeah, so you can find all the parts on the website. It's athena.eu. We use one website worldwide, and basically when you click your country, it converts it to whatever dollar it is, or if it's yen or whatever country you're in. So we have one global website, but you don't want to order from there if you're in the U.S. because it would ship from Italy. So Rocky Mountain, Motorsport, any of the online retailers, and then pretty much every dealer in Florida buys the product, because we sell to Parts Unlimited, Western Power Sports, and Tucker.
Oh, okay.
So we sell to all the distributors as well. So, but as far as if you're just if you're an online shopper like Rocky Mountain or Motorsport, they're both pretty good. The big thing right now is obviously you see on the Future MX bikes, the Hondas, is the RPM dash for the starts. Since Jet and Hunter have been running them, and we'll give credit to you guys, RJ, you've done a great job with the social media stuff, like helping us, post stuff, and we've been reposting it. And I think I sold a Cowie one this week because someone said that they seen it on Aiden's bike. He's a local guy, and he supports local teams. I think he helped you with your auction at Dade City too. But the point is the ECU is hidden, right? It's under the seat or under the number plate, so it's really hard to see on bikes that use the product. And most guys that buy the product don't want to advertise for us. So that's been the biggest sell since it's been on the Honda. So for like your bike, that would be something cool for the starts to put on your bike.
Yeah, so we got a lot of questions about that this weekend under the awning was, what is this orange thing on the front fender?
Right.
What is that? What does that do? And what Dan's talking about there, the RPM indicator, it's basically a LED display that's on top of the front fender, so you can set your when you're holding your throttle and your practice starts, and you can get to a point where you want your RPMs to be. This light will change up throughout the RPM range,
right?
And once you get to that setting, it can start giving you a consistent start every time. So when you're on the line and you've got 20 other bikes next to you and you can't hear, and you're in a stadium that's got lights and people and fans, all that stuff going on, it can give you a consistent start. And one of the things that Dan mentioned while we've been talking to him on the phone intermittently was the fact that Jet, what was it, three out of the first 4 main events he hole shotted?
Yeah, so A1, the heat race was the first time he ever used it, and he made a mistake. He didn't know how to set it. So that one was on him. But then he hole shotted the heat in the main the following week, and then at the Triple Crown the last race, and then also Hunter at round 1. Our really only bad starts were this weekend. Also, Chance Hymas at Houston was really good. So, like RJ said, you're going to get the same start every time. It's going to be the exact same starting strategy, essentially. So, you can guarantee yourself a good start if you're good at, releasing the clutch and doing that. Could you get a better start without it? Of course you could. You could be Michael Alessi and just time the gate and get a better start. But when you're at the level of these guys and you're looking for 1% or 0.5%, you're not looking for like 5% gains, right? You're looking for these very small gains. This is something that we've developed. It's our technology. We have a patent on it, and it works. So it's something cool that the average person can use. And so the RPM dash, the one that the Future MX teams use is orange, and that's what the Honda team uses. It works with our ECU. But we also make one that's black, and it works with even a stock ECU. So, like, say you just have a stock ECU, or you have someone else's aftermarket ECU. It works with that also. So we're not like, hey, you have to buy this $1,000 ECU. You can just plug it right into your stock ECU, and it works as well. So
that was my question. So, like, is the RPM level based on how the ECU is set up to where everything's like in line? You know what I mean?
So,
like per manufacturer?
Yep. Yeah, so how it works if you use a GIT ECU like Honda or Future MX does, we can adjust the parameters,
right?
Like more fine, essentially. But on the RPM dash that works for a stock ECU, it goes through the fuel pump that works off of pulse spray and stuff. So it's limited of what we can do. It still works, but it's going to work not as good, let's say. I mean, it still works. I don't want to say that, but when you use the ECU, we can be more precise, essentially.
Right.
So.
Just because you can control it down to the fine detail.
Yeah, and most of the bikes, they say they have traction control and stuff like that. That's a gear position sensor. It shuts off, when you shift to third gear or something like that. That's not what this is. This is like a whole strategy built in for the start. So,
yeah, I mean,
FTR guys and stuff that run to their bike, and maybe it's not for them, but anybody that starts behind a starting gate, it's really good. So.
I mean, I thought your guys this weekend, RJ, like ripped some pretty good starts. Like they weren't lagging 10 bike lengths behind. Like stuff works.
Well, they were coming into the group. I definitely think that some of that's really going to become with more gate drops.
Right.
Getting out there, getting the feels, and going there. I mean, like we mentioned on the show, Cole was first alternate out in Houston. Then he makes the night show, his very, very first night show in his second ever, pro race. So getting those gate drops is experience. And the more experience you have with using this, the RPM dash, which is the indicator that's, mounted to the front fender, the more you get to use it, you get comfortable with it, the better it's going to get.
Right.
So when you continue to improve and make those improvements that we saw this week over Houston, that stuff just keeps trickling forward. And Dan's been a huge help to the Future MX team. Our podcast and everything that we does. Like he mentioned himself, and he doesn't give himself enough credit. He's going to try and shy away from it, but Dan truly knows everyone in the industry. I mean, there's so many people that depend on him and rely on him, and I'm one of those people. And I can't thank Dan enough for everything that he's done. And continues to do for us. So, Dan, I'm not trying to toot your horn, but I still.
No, I know you appreciate it, though. I mean, it goes both ways. If I ever needed anything, I feel like you guys would be there. Shane as well.
Yeah,
it's good. Like Oakley, I think.
Even in the nightlife, like we help each other out.
Yeah. Oakley and those guys. I introduced those guys to you. I think at Loretta's, and it was because I knew that it was a good relationship, right? Like I knew you weren't going to burn any bridges. I knew you're not going to ask for product you don't need, like. So they were looking for somebody to sponsor, and I think they're happy with, they're not looking for Aiden to go get, top tens. That's not why they sponsored you. They sponsored you because of who you are in the company, right? Like, same with Fox or Team Green or any of those other things. So, I don't know. If you're good people, I think good things happen. So, even though last week you guys tried to get me in trouble and ruffle feathers, I still think you're good people.
We're not talking about that on this episode, but
we're not allowed to talk about that.
It's all good. Good.
We did, and we had a lot of conversations and communication about that this weekend. So overall, I greatly appreciate that, and I greatly appreciate you specifically, and all of the people that do get behind us. We've put out some posts this week, and I think having the rig there in Tampa, we had a pretty good crowd and got a lot of exposure out of it. So I'm happy with that and excited for that. But Dan, I can't thank you enough, for everything you do for the team. And one more time for anybody looking, it's athena.eu. You can go in, to their website. Obviously, like Dan mentioned, you select what country you're in, and it changes the currency to whatever country that you've selected. And a lot of different great products. We use the Get ECU, the Get batteries, and the Get RPM dash on our front fenders. There's a lot of.
Do you have an email that you have people from the show contact you at?
We use our futuremotocross@gmail.com email.
Yeah, well, have anybody that wants anything from Get or Athena, send an email to that email, whatever RJ just said.
Futuremotocross@gmail.com.
Yep, just send an email there, get whatever part numbers you want, and I'll give you we do a racer support discount for local riders and things like that. And yeah, and if we have it in stock, I'll sell it to you guys at a discount. We like supporting all the local people.
Man.
It's my roots, FTR stuff, Gold Cups, Winter Ams. Those are all my roots. I would rather do that stuff than sponsor Supercross kids. Hey. Honestly, these Supercross kids that I've never, and I follow the sport, and I don't want to, this is going to come off like me being an asshole, but I follow every sport. Like, I watch all these races, and there's kids I've never heard of. I don't even know how they're racing, and they're just, like, coming off like they deserve all this free stuff, and just because they're, like, racing Supercross. And I'm like, cool, man, like, I'm happy for you. Congratulations, but, like, why do I owe you anything? Like, they'll come at you and, like, be like, yeah, man, you have to sponsor me because, I'm racing Houston.
Man,
cool.
The only thing worse is guys like me who don't race Supercross and still want everything for free.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, like, and I have some people, it's just all about, and me and some of my friends, Carbinos, who runs the company, and other people, we share messages in a group text all the time, like, just send an email, be polite. Like, honestly, like, we don't mind helping people out, but people that just come off and they're just, like, they expect stuff, like, there's some really good kids that I don't sponsor because I don't like them. And I mean, I know that's wrong, but I don't care.
No,
like,
honestly, Dan, that is so spot on right now with some of the conversations that we've been having lately, and even a conversation I had earlier today. I mean, I fully agree with that comment, and I fully support you in that comment that, there is something about, people today that just believe that everything should be handed to them. And, I had multiple conversations with riders at the track this weekend, and I see what some of these guys are getting and what they're doing. And man, it's a game changer. I mean, one of the guys that we've had on our episode before, Joey Savacci, the guy is crushing it right now. I mean, top 10ing it every weekend in the 450s. And, when he was on our episode, he mentioned that they were only going to do 8 races this season. And I'm just sitting there in my mind. I'm like, man, this guy's putting in results. Like,
working on his own dirt bike.
He's working on his own bikes. Handling a lot of the logistics of his program himself. And that was one of the comments that I talked to even with Justin Starling. I mean, the amount of logistics that go into this that he's managing on his own, of getting his own sprinters to the races and handling his bikes, which I'm not even going to get into the details of the conversation. But Dan, I fully support that.
I helped Joey, like I helped you out. I mean, I was trying to get Joey a gear deal, from some European gear companies and stuff, just I don't make any money off that deal. You know what I mean? I just was trying to help Joey out as just like I try to help you out. But I guarantee you some of your sponsors that are really good to you probably give you more, they take care of you better, let's say, than someone that is possibly better than your riders because of the way you treat them, the way you respect them, right? And it's crazy. I just helped out some little kid from Arizona. He's trying to go to Loretta's. He probably not even going to qualify, to be honest with you. I looked at his results. But he was 14 years old. He sent me this email. He didn't ask for anything free. He said, hey, I live with my dad, and we're trying to go racing. We're happy to pay. Is there any discount you could give us?
That probably
just to help
sounded
us out.
familiar.
He sent me pictures. I'm like, dude, man, I have some returns from, the distributors that come back, someone scratches the box and they return them. I'm able to hook this kid up, It's like it made this whole kid's month, It's like, but he wasn't like, hey, I'm this and that. He was just like, hey, is there any way you could help me out? So I don't know. For anybody that's listening that may do their own stuff, be respectful, because I'm on that side of it. I see resumes all day, every day, and these people are crazy.
No, that's honestly, that's great advice. And we did talk about that. I think when we got back from our A2 trip, we talked about trying to put an educational segment of our, YouTube channel or our website where we could try and help people. But I want to highlight what Dan said there, and that is a critical moment for a lot of these guys that are coming up, is be respectful, be grateful, appreciate, what you do get, because I see so many people right now, just like you, Dan, with getting, support emails. We get ride emails, hey, are you sponsoring another rider? I did this, and this. And it's like, man, you've got to understand there is a huge part of this that I really don't care about your results. I care about the quality of person you are.
Exactly. And I mean, I run a company, obviously, and I have employees, and a lot of times they compare what they make to what the other employee makes. Or I've been here longer than this guy. I'm like, okay, but you don't even know what his job is, or you don't know that. I said, do what you do and do your job, right? And I hear it a lot right now at the races. Colt Nichols has a factory Honda ride, right? Joey Savacci is better than Colt Nichols right now. I agree. There was a reason why Colt Nichols got that ride, right? His testing capabilities, maybe how much money he wanted. There are some logistics with Joey. He has a World Supercross deal, so Joey was in the conversation, and that's kind of a perfect example, right? Results-wise, Joey is probably a better choice for factory Honda. But what Honda needed, they have Chase Sexton to win, and they have the Lawrence boys to win the 250 class. Colt Nichols was never going there to win races. That's not what Colt Nichols was hired to do, So that's the part that people don't see. I see it online. I see people every weekend. Why has Colt got a factory Honda ride? Colt's doing what he's hired to do.
He's always got a smile on his face.
Yeah,
he's a
happy.
great. He's a great guy.
And that wasn't a dig at Joey. I was just using Joey as an example. I think
100%.
Joey should be on a factory team, hands down. But people always go, well, so-and-so should have this ride over him. Why? Because he finished 2 spots ahead of him? Like Dean Wilson, for example. The guy's awesome. He's got a great personality. He was on Factory Husky. He was on Factory KTM. And he brings a lot to the table. You know what I mean? And people are always like, oh, he's washed up. I'm like, he's not really, though. He's a past champion, and he's really good. This weekend when Colt came in, he was frustrated. And I said, Colt, there's 15 champions on the line this weekend in the 450 class. You guys are all good. You know what I mean? It's hard.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's a deep field. And I will say, I want to give a shout-out to Joey, where give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
And on the Pulp MX, the Tampa Supercross review podcast that Steve and Jason Wygant did, Joey is the one that sent a picture of our semi to Steve, and Steve had no idea who we were. And that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. We're brand new. It's our first time the semi's ever been there, but I want to say a thank you to Joey for sending that.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And I mean, and Steve's tough, right? Obviously, I'm a partner with Steve in the Pulp MX Fantasy stuff. I work together with him, and he's been in this sport a long time. You guys are, a podcast against him, or I don't know your feelings towards him, but I will say that
I don't think so. I mean, he's on a way bigger platform than we are. And,
I'm just saying he doesn't follow amateur racing at all. He literally couldn't tell you who won Loretta's, the Horizon Award, and that's because he just doesn't have time, and he doesn't care about it.
Sure.
And I respect that. That's what he is. So that would be my reasoning essentially why he doesn't know you, because he just never had a chance to do it. or to see you guys come up. But I mean, he does do a good job on his platform, man.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like-
And dude, I'm not knocking it at all that he doesn't know us. That was the first time we've ever had our semi at a pro event whatsoever. I mean, and we've only had the semi at one other event ever, and that was Minios, you know?
I joke with, you can bring this up next time you talk with Seth Rarick. We joke, they're year 2 with the Firepower Honda team, and I took him to the track last weekend in Houston. He flew in and rode with me in Burner. He had never seen the Firepower Honda team semi. He had never seen it. 2 years. He didn't even know what it looked like. We were joking. I was like, "You've never seen it?" He's like, "No, because Honda's never parked my KTM." He's like, and he's like, "I'm always busy." He's like, "I didn't even know what it looked like, what color it was, or nothing." We were dying laughing because the first time Seth had ever seen the semi was last weekend in Houston.
No,
so I mean, like even this weekend, it's hard, right, on race days, but I don't know. Back to our thing, be respectful to people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I appreciate them even bringing us up on the review. I'm grateful for them to bring us up. You know, I mean, that's awesome for us. And you know, in my opinion, you know, whether they know about us or not, at least they talked about it, and there's growth just in that by itself.
Dan,
and I think you guys are going to get the amount of rider requests you're going to get, like say Rides Unlimited gets at the end of the year, or what the previous Rocky Mountain KTM team would get. You're going to get so many riders that are going to message you. Going back to what Shane said last week on your show about pay for rides, there's a lot of rides that are paid for. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do or whatever, but you're going to get a lot of requests of, I'm better than this guy, I should be on the team, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they don't understand.
And that's honestly,
that's
it's already
standard.
started. It's already started.
Standard.
I mean, just this weekend alone, we've had some riders, you know, one of which was somebody that's been in a main event, you know, this season. And, you know, hey, I'd love to kind of talk to you guys about what your plan is and what your goals are for next year and figure out if there's a way for me to be a part of it. And I'm just sitting there like, whoa.
Yeah, and I mean, some of these things turn out to be good deals, right? Like in the GPs, usually there's an MXGPs, there's usually an A rider. And then if you look at some of the guys, like you guys that you wouldn't know, Monticelli rides for Factory Kawasaki or has for the last couple of years. He brought a huge sponsor to the team, right? A huge sponsor, you know, that paid a lot of funding. And he's still a good rider, you know, makes the motos, gets points, all that stuff. But there's riders out there like that, and maybe that's something you need. You know, maybe it's not a paid ride, right? But maybe he brings a company or his dad's company or something, and they have a lot of funding, and that's what helps you keep doing this with Aiden and Cole and other guys.
Now that's what I agree with, honestly. You know, I mean, there's that F1 kid. I think he's Russian. You know that his dad is, you know, his company.
There's
his company's
few,
a huge sponsorship or whatever. If a rider comes with a sponsorship, you know, aspect, and that's a whole different story.
Sure.
Yeah, so most of these guys, like on the higher end, like for sure MXGP, I know I think it's HSF Logistics was one of the companies brought on board, which is like DHL basically. And then that rider gets a salary, right? Okay, say it's X amount of dollars, they get paid, all their expenses paid, bike and travel, but then that sponsor goes to the team, right? So the team makes an extra couple $100,000, actually makes money on the deal. I'm okay with that. Like, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's a good, and that's how you're going to grow, you know? You know, people can talk about Forrest Butler any way they want, but he ran a successful team for a very long time, you know, and, you know, some were good, some were bad, but through its really good days, Forrest did a great job at doing things like that, bringing on companies that would sponsor. You know, he brought Rocky Mountain in basically into Supercross, really, right? And BTO Sports back in the day. So I think, RJ, if you can learn anything from this year is just to, you know, don't just shut all those doors that these people are sending emails. You never know who that guy might know, you know?
Oh, yeah.
At least look at him.
Yeah, no doubt.
So.
No doubt. I'm open to any opinions and any conversation. I'd love to learn and love to hear about it and figure out how we can determine if we can keep this thing going or not, you know, and I fully understand even in the comments on the review show on Pulp where, you know, Wygant and Mathis were talking about it too. I mean, there is a lot of these teams that come and go, and, you know, I ideally I don't want to be one of those teams, but at the end of the day, when you look at the budget that it takes and the expenses of going racing, you got to have some support to get behind it and go do it. And, you know, right now we've committed to, you know, the select rounds that we are going to, and if we can keep on after that, we'd love to. And if it doesn't make financial sense for us, then we got to do what we got to do. So, you know, we're not at we're not at that point yet.
Sure.
You know, we don't.
And if
we
you
don't
look
have
at a
to
team
cross
like
that bridge.
Moto Concepts is a great example. I mean, they're really well, like they're a good team, right? I think they have good parts, they have good sponsors, but they don't overdo it. They don't run an entire 450 Supercross season. They don't run motocross. They run what they can afford, and they just try to do it right. That's kind of the platform I would look at for you. Just don't try to grow too fast and, all right, we're going to take a 450 guy to 17 rounds and 3 250 guys, and I think you'll just stretch yourself too thin.
Oh yeah, no, trust me, I brought it up on the
and on the stretch yourself thin on the stress levels too.
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, you're going to stress more. And then the money doesn't go as far either, right? There's a lot of these trucking companies. We had an awesome sponsor a few years ago with 2-2, and the guy paid for all the fuel, and it was a great company. His son actually trained with Tim Ferry. And I think it's awesome. There's people out there like that are good people that want to help out. And you find one guy like that covers your diesel fuel for the year, and that's huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. That's a game changer. We talked about it on the last episode, and I don't want to get in too deep to it, but you look at if we had a 450 rider right now, we would be on the road as we speak, headed to Oakland. But because we are choosing to do 250 East Coast only, because we're an East Coast team, we get to skip that round. So that's strictly a financial decision. You put a 450 guy on the road, for 17 rounds, and you're all over the country. That's a massive expense.
What about Dallas? Do you skip Dallas too because it's a Triple Crown, or do you go?
We are signed up. We are going to Dallas. We are signed up, committed to going to Daytona. I think after that, the plan right now is trying, expense-wise, putting the truck on the road. We're pretty much committed to going to Atlanta and Nashville. I think we're going to end up missing the New Jersey round because that one's a East-West showdown. And then really at that point, the expense of, going to Indy, we've got an obligation that weekend. It's the same weekend as Indy, which is the Red Bull Day in the Dirt. So we're going to go down there. We've got a really cool bike build going on and some relationship with Red Bull that we're going to do at that Day in the Dirt event. So we'll miss Indy because of that. And then, we're going to miss New Jersey because of the East-West Showdown. And then we'll probably skip Detroit. But outside of that, we'll hit 6 East Coast rounds to get our feet wet in this whole, pro racing thing and let the guys, kind of get an idea where they stack up and where they're at. And then, make a decision on how to move forward.
No, I like that plan. Like I said, I don't think you're stretching yourself too thin. The Triple Crowns are tough, just because, it's a day program. There's just, the top 18 and an LCQ. So that's why I was asking about the Dallas. Just the scheduling is very tough. East-West races I get, only 9 from each coast basically make it. So I think you're doing the right thing. The boys could easily get in Dallas. Aiden showed that this weekend. So. But don't skip Nashville. Whatever you got to do, make that one work. If we need to save some money or GoFundMe or something, we can make that work.
Yeah, I am looking forward to Nashville. I got to figure out the logistics on that one. I haven't quite gotten that point yet. Right now, we are, just like I've mentioned on the show multiple times, we are only signed up at the moment for the first 4. But after that, I think the Atlanta round, being in a speedway, Atlanta's fairly close to us, here in Florida. So the expense of going to Atlanta is not that bad. And then truthfully, Nashville's really not much further down the road than Atlanta. Yeah.
No, I think you have a good plan. Like I said, I've been around a lot of these teams that I've seen them come and go like Steve has, right? And a lot of them spread themselves too thin. They do too much or overpromise, and then they can't deliver. And I will say my biggest thing I learned, my dad taught me was don't burn any bridges. And I think, if you ask Shane or anybody else, I could probably pick up a phone and call anybody I've worked with. And, I pride myself on that. I think that's good. I didn't really screw anybody over or do anything to all this. And I think that's the way you should kind of build your team. Make sure you're loyal to those people.
Well, and I think that's why you have the reputation in the pits that you do have. There's so many people that look up to you just like I do and appreciate all the support that you have and the connections. And, I'll forever be grateful for everything you've done for us and continue to do for us. It's super cool and greatly appreciate your time, Dan, and everything. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. You're still in the shop right now because we're on the phone with you in the shop line. So,
I usually do one all-nighter a week. It's usually Wednesday, but it'll probably be tonight. So I do one all-nighter a week at Athena.
I know why we're on the shop phone, because his cell phone sucks there.
My cell phone don't work in the shop.
Yeah.
We got a metal building and it don't work. But it's crazy. I I am busy, but man, I enjoy talking to you guys, and I'll try to get up one of these weekends and do it in person with you. I think you guys have done a good job with it. I'm not a big podcast guy because I'm just always just working, but I've listened to a couple shows, and I think it's good what you're doing, man. I think you've got a good base going with the Florida community and growing from there. So I think it's good.
Well, thank you, Dan. I greatly appreciate your time of coming on and all the insight that you have. And anybody that's looking for any of those products, like Dan mentioned, you can reach out to us at futuremotocross@gmail.com. We can try and help you get in the right direction with Dan. And even if you're looking for products or SKU numbers, go to athena.eu on the website and find those products that you need, and we'll get you in touch with the right people to make that happen. And Dan, again, greatly appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
See you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Easily one of the best guys in the pits.
He's wild. He's wild for sure. I mean.
So how do we go from best guy in the pit to he's wild?
Because
he's wild.
No, he's wild on the aspect. Y'all don't get my language. He's wild on the aspect that he stretches himself out to freaking everybody. That's wild. I don't have that personality. So when I say Dan's wild, he's wild. Dude, the dude does a lot of stuff for a lot of people.
And he works a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of people may or may not agree with Dan on certain situations, but the guy, dude, trust me, if I was in Sarasota or Miami or whatever and I got stranded, I would probably call Dan before you, RJ.
Yeah.
Because
he's going to be there for you.
No, because so would you.
Yeah,
to a certain extent.
But Dan's still awake in his shop working on.
Dan's
products.
still awake. He's going to answer his phone and he's going to be like, Shane, I got Jose down there in Miami who's going to. Yeah, I know that guy. He'll come get you. You know what I mean?
You're going to have to call me 5 times to wake me up.
Yes, that's Dan's wild. That's my wild aspect. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I greatly appreciate Dan and everything he's done. If anybody wants to get into detail there about how much that guy has supported me, I'd love to sit down and have that conversation. But one thing that I do want to bring up before we wrap up the show, Shane, is we posted on our Instagram and made a story or a post about it. The 2001 CR500 build is officially underway.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, yeah, that thing's kind of roached. Is that like coming together? I was like, there's no way.
No, that's the teardown.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So that thing is the teardown, and I mean, even where it has already gone since I made that post. I mean, we're talking powder coated frame. We're talking, vapor honed stuff.
I thought I seen rims in the background.
There was.
I was more impressed by the table with the parts on it than the picture of the bike. So I can't wait to see it because, like I said, it looks kind of roached right now, and then I can't wait to see the end product.
Yeah, well, we're working through the whole thing. I mean, Ronnie Monk at 612 Suspension is helping us with the suspension, with putting the Race Tech Gold Valve stuff in that thing to get the suspension dialed in. And our good friend Nick Walton over at Pirelli was with us this weekend in Tampa and came by the truck, and I sat down and told him about the build and what we were doing, and next thing I know, he's walking over to the semi to throw some Pirelli tires on that bike.
Is that an 18-inch rear?
Stock, yes, but it's going to be a 19 for the event, and we're going to go with a 120.
It really has an 18 on the rear?
Yeah. Come on, man. You got to let that 18-inch eat.
No.
Because the tires on a 500 size bike with an 18-inch, the tires just it's going to rip your face off.
Well, it's going to be a 19 on there, and it's going to be a 120 instead of a 110. So we had our good friends at Pirelli come over and help get behind the build and get behind the program. And then, obviously we've had a great relationship thus far and continuing to improve that with Red Bull and the Day in the Dirt Down South team and the crew at Dade City Motocross of, what we're doing here. So we kind of wanted to give everybody an idea that, this build that we've been talking about on the show and that,
with TJ.
Yeah.
Don't forget TJ.
Yeah. No, TJ's the one that went out and found the bike and acquired it for us and got everything, lined up to get ready for this event. So, we've talked about it a lot, but didn't really get any sneak peeks out there. So that was the very first phase of starting to get this thing torn down. But the plan for this thing is it's going to look pretty.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah, we got Step Up MX is working on a graphics package for us right now that, we get to kind of dice it up a little bit here, and Red Bull gets to have their opinion on it, and
That's cool.
Put their input
Like
in.
a collaboration,
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm really excited, honestly. I'm looking forward to how this thing turns out and unveiling it at the event, and then putting the rider, Mr. Pooh Sipes, going to throw his leg over this thing and go back out there as the defending Ironman champion.
He's an Ironman on that thing? Is this all set in stone?
For the most part.
I'm gonna throw my leg over that thing for sure at some point.
Yeah, no, we want people to. I mean, even the Red Bull athletes that are going to be there at the event, if somebody wants to take that thing for a spin, that's the idea. To go out there and let people showcase, this build that we're going through, and like you said, Mr. TJ Flanders and the whole program that he's got going. I mean, he's done so many builds right now, and he's got so many different things.
He texted me this week. He was like, we're going to figure this RM250 out or what? And I honestly still haven't gotten back with him, but he's got all kinds of ideas for that thing.
Well, he's got a new Instagram page going right now, the Sasquatch Built Bikes.
Yeah.
And he's basically showing all of these builds that he's done, before for different people. I mean, he's, it was a big part of the Corey Keelan build, the Cowie build that he has. And
that thing barks.
Yeah, it does.
Cool.
But no, I mean, TJ's been awesome and been a friend of mine for a very long time, and has gotten this thing, going. Just like we've mentioned, there is so many moving parts in the operation of our daily lives, between having a job that we have to manage and maintain during the week, but then we also have this racing team, and we have our production side, between the podcast, the YouTube channel, we've got our essentially in-house production side. So there's a lot of moving parts, and when TJ and I got together and started talking about this thing, and it just kind of ran wild from there, and being able to build that relationship with Day in the Dirt down south.
Yeah, it's coming to fruition now. So
it
it's
is.
Like,
and I would say that majority of that is because of TJ, because I just don't have the time, to do the entire thing, all by myself. So having his help and support in this, and by the way, those RM build that you're talking about, the 99 250 that you have, your graphics are sitting over there in that box. Right?
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Get them live on air.
I haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, let's take a look. Go get the box.
I'll grab them. I'll grab them so you can see it. But talk about what else? You were talking about gold wheels the other day for that thing. What else are we like?
Well, when Kenny...
Talk about clapped.
No.
That thing's clapped.
That thing ain't clapped, dude. Me and you. When Kenny rolled that guy, I don't know, how the displays... What is it? I forget what the company... Sorry, the company that brings all the, old bikes to the Supercross.
Legends and Heroes?
Legends and Heroes. Yes, sir. Thank you for the correction. But anyway, when they brought Kenny's, that 94, that Suzuki out this weekend at Tampa, I was like...
Wait, that wasn't a 94.
No, the number 94.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And it had sick gold wheels on it, and I was like, yo, that thing looks... That was a clean bike. Kenny posted about it on his deal, but...
Oh, my gosh. Is that... Sugar, is that approval from you?
I didn't have any say in the design, but no, dude, that looks good. Heck yeah. So funny, the side plates, the shroud plates, so huge.
Look at that.
Sugar.
Oh, I didn't need those, but now they say sugar. Oh, good grief. No, those are cool. Yeah, Step Up does a good job. Step Up does a real good job. Yeah, that's cool. And it's funny, I wear Oakleys, so everything that's got going on right here matches.
What the hell is that? Is that supposed to be a front plate?
Yeah, it's a 99 Suzuki.
Jesus.
It's just, don't bring Jesus into it. It's just a square plate. That's what they made, dude. Man,
I swear, is that
welcome back to 99.
Is that a BMX plate from 1986?
Well, I mean, it could be. You can put it on whatever plate from the 90s and early, late 80s you want. No, those are cool. Hell yeah.
Sweet. Now you just need some...
Now we got that thing styling.
Now you just need some Get Athena stuff on that on that Zook.
There's not a whole lot of electronics in there.
No, honestly, like I forgot to ask Dan on when we had him on, but like I remember they make some pretty good two-stroke products, EFI two-stroke products, and I remember our buddy number 16, old Zach Osborne, had some products of theirs on his two-stroke that he had out at an 83 compound, and I'm like, "Gah, that is the barkiest, gnarliest bike I've ever heard." So they also make two-stroke, really good two-stroke products as well.
Well, before we wrap up the episode, Tyler, you got to come down to Tampa Friday, Saturday, run through, give me the highlight for you of the weekend at Tampa Supercross.
Oh, definitely 6th place, Aiden Shive was the highlight. By far the coolest aspect, bar none.
That's probably on the Future MX side. Anything outside of the Future MX side? Anything about the event,
the weekend,
the overall? I mean, the last corner pass of Hunter.
Oh, the lights main was fantastic. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. If you look at the scoring sheet, it's like I think they did 18 laps, and it's like Thrasher leads 17, and then the very last lap is obviously Hunter with 1, and then the gap was like .0164 or something like that to the finish line. I mean, it's not going to get any better than that. It was fantastic.
Shane,
it was.
Anything for you on the weekend that stood out?
My boy Coop, dude. That was strong. I watched it again last night with my dad before the Super Bowl came on, and I was like, "Dad, you got to realize that he's pacing Sexton right now. Like he's not going anywhere. He's halfway through the race, he's still there." And I was like, "Dude, Coop made a boy proud right there. Like he freaking crushed it."
I figured that was going to be
dude,
up there for you.
I mean,
You're such a fanboy.
I'm not a fanboy. Like
you're fanboy out all over us right now.
Whatever, man. Listen, man. Coop's a good dude. Coop hangs out. We're all kind of got this little homie session going on here in Florida with Coop, and the guy put up this weekend, and I hope it continues, because I think it's more of a positive that it's not going to be like, because obviously the Supercross presentation or whatever is like all about Sexton and Tomac. But I didn't want it to be that way. I want some more guys in the hunt and more of a drama, and Coop's there now. I think mentally, physically, the guy can be there. So I think it's going to make it an exciting rest of the season. So that was a positive for me.
Yeah, no matter how you shake it, we got an extra winner this year in the 450 class, so there's no complaints coming out of that.
Yeah. No, I was excited to see it, just like Shane said, and I'm going to duplicate the same story. There's seeing, what we consider to be one of our friends, came over to the Future MX semi and sat with us on Friday afternoon, and got to joke around and have a good time with him, and see him and his wife Mariah, which happy birthday to Mariah. It was her birthday last week. She and I talked about, her age, so I'm not going to bring that up. That's not allowed.
Why, she's struggling?
She said that Coop was having a little fun with it right now.
Oh, God. Well, he can't talk without talking shit anyway. So I get it.
So, that was one of the highlights for me, was seeing him win, and then obviously Hunter, with us riding and training with them at the Dog Pound every day. Anytime any of our group that's out there, whether it's Benny Bloss or Hoffman, the Lawrence brothers, Hymus, everyone out there starts to build some camaraderie with each other, and you start rooting for each other because you get to know them better. So I would say for me, one of my highlights personally, and I do want to say a huge thank you to everybody that took time out of their day to make my son, Benji, feel special. Yeah. But man, that kid is a hugger. Yeah. And he ran up to AP and Seth Rarick, and AP, Aaron Plessinger, was walking out of, I think it was track walk. And I think it was, but Benji just runs right up and like latches onto AP's leg. I mean, just completely bear hugs his leg. And I'm like, Benji, give him a little space here, bud.
But maybe Benji just thought the AP puts off that vibe.
He does. He's always so happy.
Yeah.
So, AP was one of them, and even Hunter. Hunter went out of his way to take time to spend some time with my son and one of his little buddies, Rowdy, and even AJ Catanzaro, AJ was on his way into the stadium, and obviously AJ's another one that we know from the compound, and being able to stop and take time out of his daily schedule, grab a couple minutes with the boys and take a picture and talk to them. That was very exciting for me. So I want to say thank you to every one of those. And that absolutely sounds like being a fanboy, but it's also important to me as a dad, to let those guys and my son have those moments with them.
Well, that's what it's all about, man. I mean, if you're a Supercross, motocross race fan, this weekend should be phenomenal for you because it was great racing. And on top of that, the friends that we do have, they give back to the kids and the fans, and it's a good experience for everybody.
No, it was a great weekend. It was a very exciting weekend. I want to thank Dino for giving me a ride to dinner and giving me a ride back.
Hey, I want to thank Dino too because a very important person for my company was a huge Roxon fan. He actually got him and his kids to meet Kenny this weekend, and that was great. And I might get promoted, I might not. And I told him about I told him about the podcast, and so now he's a listener. So if you're listening, nah, dude, I did it because I know how it is. I've always done it. If somebody that I know is a true tried fan of somebody or whatever, I try to help them out because that's what the sport's about, and it's hard to get in front of those guys.
Yeah. No, it is. And once you kind of get inside the pits and you're inside the industry, it's a whole different life.
Yeah.
It's really cool to be able to mix and mingle with those guys, and you're saving parking spots and picking up riders out in the parking lot with your with our little team golf cart. I went and grabbed one of our mini bike assassin, Mr. Carson Wood, and his family, Chris and Jacqueline. They all showed up, and right at the same time that they were getting on the golf cart, I went outside to pick them up. Hunter was parking right next to them at the exact same time. So then Hunter gets on the golf cart with us, and we're basically escorting or giving a ride to Hunter Lawrence into the pits, and that's fun for me, because it's an opportunity for them to get to meet Hunter and see how cool he really is. So
you want another highlight of mine? This was threading the needle getting that truck out of there.
Oh yeah,
I threaded a lot of needles.
I was impressed,
and I was thinking about that.
And I haven't done it in a while, and I was like, oh my god, I hope I don't hit something. But but for real, there was a couple needles that I had to thread with that damn thing, but it worked out. My natural instincts just kicked in, and Pimp Daddy Shane over here just got it done. So
yeah, it was time to go, and you were leaving. So
yeah, when it's time to go, it's time to go, and you're gonna thread those needles.
Well, and I will give credit where credit is due. We were the first team semi out of
besides Dunlop, but
I'm talking about team wise. Obviously Dunlop was there, and they're a huge asset to the people that they support in the pits. But as far as teams, we were the first one out of there.
I knew we were ready to go, and so I was like, let me walk around and just look, And so I started looking around, and I was like, all right, we could probably back up here, do this maneuver or whatever, and get out. But then we got out of the pit area, and I was like, oh, dude, this is a little crazy.
The traffic.
It's been a minute, and then we got on the freeway, and there's 2 wrecks, and I had to thread a needle 5 lanes over. It was cool, but hey, man, when the pressure's on, this is what these riders need to learn. When the pressure's on, you just get it done.
Yeah. Oh, you did. You got that thing right out of there. So that was impressive, and ended up getting home sometime. I was about 1:00ish total, or
right around there, and we had a slice of pizza. Thank you. RJ brought me a slice of pizza from the Flying J. It's dude,
ooh.
Hey,
little delicacy.
He's
big perks around here.
No, he thought in his head that he's driving a truck. He probably wants some trucker food, from the Flying J, the Flying Hook is what we call it, And so he brings me a pizza, and I was like, I slept happy that night. I was like, finally, I got to get back in a truck, eat some trucker food, and get a good night's rest, before the next day. Mm-hmm. That was amazing.
No, got her on back in there, and
hey man, brought you a piece of pizza from Flying J.
Parked her down for the night.
It was like the meat lovers one too. There was meat all over this thing, and I downed that thing, and I was like,
no, it was awesome. But looking forward to the next event. Obviously, we have the weekend off for the East Coast boys because of the Oakland round, but still have Drew and Carson out there hitting some amateur scenes, and then we have the Dallas race coming, and then Daytona. So we're going to keep chugging along and doing the best that we can possibly do. And I greatly appreciate everybody that supports the show and the amount of people that came up this weekend to the semi and said that they listened to the episodes on all the the different platforms that they can listen to it on, and they're always waiting for the next episode to be released. That was very refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Very cool.
To be able to have that, the people talking about listening to it while they're at their office at work or while they're driving, and that's always exciting, because sometimes you get lost in how busy all of our schedules and things are going. So to have that come out was very refreshing, and I greatly appreciate all the people that made it a point to come by the truck and see us and say hey and thank you. But again, just want to wrap up the episode with a huge thanks to our sponsor, Mr. HBI Racing and HBI Tax. Mr. Matt Bell, got to spend time with him and Darla this weekend. So great.
And on all the other sponsors too that made this race weekend happen. There's a lot of players involved.
Absolutely. No, there was, and I am excited that we got to showcase the truck at our very first, pro race and got some attention and exposure, and even got, Joey taking pictures of it. So that's a good thing.
That's awesome.
So greatly appreciate it from everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode. We'll continue to pump these things out here each week that we can, and keep on keeping on.
Hit it, Rick Johnson.
Hit it, Rick Johnson.
We've been having technical difficulties.
Turn it on.
There we are.